be a considerable nervousness because a lot of people have a lot to resting on this, and it gets very tense. If the dials indicate that the program is not doing that well, there's a lot of depression, a lot of unhappiness, and a lot of, well, let's see if we can come up with another program because this one isn't going to make it.
This is one of the most influential places in world television. What happens here at the Preview Theatre on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood shapes the popular television drama the world watches. For 20 years, the stories made in Hollywood and consumed in Europe, Africa, and Asia have been tested and reshaped here. It's a vast business, fueled by ratings and advertising dollars, and nothing can be left to chance.
These two charts over here break down the audience into the sex and the age.
Several times a week, an ever-changing audience of 400 Californians are invited here to register their views on new programs by turning the dials on 400 little black boxes. But first, there's always the Mr. Magoo cartoon.
We use the Magoo as a control because we know, having used that Magoo every time we've opened the doors of this theater, we know how every audience should respond, and by watching them respond up here, we can determine if this is a typical responding audience. We have had a situation the night that John F. Kennedy was assassinated. We also had a situation the night that Martin Luther King was assassinated. In both cases, the Magoo reacted in a very atypical manner.
When Mr. Magoo has tested the audience can be allowed to test the new television dramas. As drama consumers, the way they vote has real power, dictating script changes and sacking actors. The Preview Theatre is about trying to limit the mess and unpredictability of television storytelling. The job is to deliver hits to the advertisers.
Advertising has a much greater role in television in the United States than it does in other countries. Without advertising, you have no programming.
But for all the money and the science, the Preview Theatre still has its failures. It seems that even to the Hollywood story machine, the search for success offers no easy answers.
I don't know why. Nobody knows why. Because if we knew why, we wouldn't have our heart in our mouths every time we made a film, hoping that it would be successful. We'd know the formula and apply a soupçon of action and a dash of savagery and a little bit of alien, and we'd have the formula.
It's larger than life, and I think people like to see things like that. Takes them out of their everyday drudgeries and puts them into a different world.
It's escapism. It is escapism. It takes the mind of the people off the present situation. They don't want anything that will get people thinking about the way things are right here, right now. If the drama comes from London or it comes from New York or Hollywood, all right, it's just far enough away so that it's not going to rock the boat.
For 30 years, the Hollywood drama product has been pumped across the planet. But when it's available, audiences prefer the homegrown series, reflecting local needs and obsessions. In Japan, that means the samurai drama Underground Executioner. In Brazil, a stream of escapist telenovelas like Champagne, set in a fashionable wine bar, hog the screens for 3 hours a night, 6 nights a week. Glossy fantasies of high life grip an audience of 60 million of the world's poorest people. The television story machine has grown into a vast international industry in just 3 decades. Inevitably, the story behind the machine began in America. Right now! And from the start, the themes and images were all American.
Camel's, America's most popular cigarette, presents Man Against Crime.
By 1949, the weekly drama series in the USA, often transplanted from radio, had already established some important priorities. Produced by an advertising agency, Man Against Crime was sponsored by Camel cigarettes. Writers were instructed, do not have any disreputable person smoking cigarettes. They were also told, somebody must be murdered, preferably early, with the threat of more violence to come.
No man's wife would sew a button on a blue suit with tan thread. That's the trademark of a bachelor.
And the guidelines also insisted, The hero must be menaced early and often. But in the flimsy sets, fights had to be brief.
Your name's Leach, isn't it? You're president of the $100 million Anticipation Society.
I'll have your license revoked, you cheap 10-star clown.
On your way, Junior. Don't get up. You're going out in character. On your belly. Start crawling.
Oh, I can't move. You hurt my leg.
Your leg, my foot.
Nice work, cousin.
Back in the old world, the Britain of the early 1950s was discovering a different kind of television. On a single channel, populated with announcers in dinner jackets, where sleepy interludes featured potter's wheels and kittens rather than toothpaste and cornflakes, the first popular drama series to grip the nation in 1953 was a shocker.
490, 460,
station, up here.
2 seconds, speed, 230, 210.
They're nearly done. They crashed.
Yes.
I assume the audience were hungry for something different from the usual situation comedy or Dickens or Thomas Hardy serial. They wanted to see something exciting.
In the Quatermass experiment, a spaceship returns from the moon to crash land on Wimbledon. Posh scientists in trench coats and pressmen in trilbies wait for the three crew to emerge.
It is Victor.
He's alive, thank God.
What's going on? I don't see.
Picture Fred. There's nobody there. There's no sign of either of them.
What's that?
They're gone. They're gone. As a matter of interest, this happens to be news.
Victor! What happened?
You'll be able to see the next episode of the Quatermass experiment next Saturday evening at 8:45.
In America in the mid-50s, television was going west. As TVs arrived in millions of ordinary homes, the thirst for cheap mass-audience drama series intensified. The American networks mounted a raid on the storytelling capital of the world. Hollywood did not welcome the intruder.
Television was kind of an interloper. It had sneaked in somewhere. It wasn't to be considered anything of importance. So if you went into television from being in the feature end, it was like getting scarlet fever.
For the big glamorous Hollywood studios like Warner Brothers with their spectacular productions and huge budgets, television in the early 50s seemed cheap and nasty, but it was also threatening.
Jack Warner had not appreciated television. First off, it was cutting into the theatrical motion picture business tremendously. And as a matter of fact, he wouldn't even allow a television set to be part of a dressed set for a picture. Nobody watched television in Warner Pictures at that point. Nobody. So you can see he didn't care for it too much. But our business had been going down in the theaters, and it was a matter eventually, if you can't beat them, join them. So we did.
From the entertainment capital of the world, produced for television by Warner Brothers.
I was placed in charge one Friday afternoon, much to my surprise, because at that time, you only went to television as on the stopover to Devil's Island.
Borrowing stories from old Western paperbacks and splicing in spectacular scenes from old Hollywood Westerns, Cheyenne pioneered a cheap and highly efficient formula.
Now you found me.
And it made a star of Norman Walker, renamed Clint.
What do you figure we owe you?
I figure 300's about right.
I'd say you and your horses together ain't worth more than a plugged nickel.
Well, Clint being massive and a quiet man to start with, he was not a flamboyant personality.
Right here.
So we had him play it
Welcome to it.
fairly monosyllabic.
Take it.
He became the kind of the typical Western hero who does the right thing all the time.
That was good shooting.
Wears the white hat, so to speak.
I've never seen anything like it in my life. Me either.
He asked for it.
You're a witness that I took just $300.
Don't you ever get lonesome?
Now and then.
And most of our shows in those days had the old-fashioned morality play going for them.
I'm telling you.
All right, you've told me. Now you better go back to your husband.
What are you, a saint?
In the Cold War climate of the mid-50s, where President Eisenhower spoke of the forces of good and evil arrayed as never before, and anti-communist pressure groups forced a purge of television, the black and white moralities of the Westerns touched the public mood. And television advertisers were urged to see this simple moral universe, where virtue triumphed and evil was punished, as a natural ally for the security and satisfaction of the consumer goods offered by their commercials. The success of Cheyenne blazed a trail for a whole posse of more trigger-happy TV heroes. By the late 1950s, there were more than 100 telefilm series on American primetime TV, 30 of them Westerns. The stampede of American TV drama series thundered into the world market.
Man, look at that cat-laid tread.
Objection, Your Honor.
My name's Friday. I'm a cop. Shot cheaply in 5 days and skillfully distributed, the action series could undercut almost any local production. As a result, drama makers in countries like Australia and Canada found themselves virtually banished from their own TV screens.
It's certainly a lot of bull.
The economics of the American telefilm invasion were irresistible. Bonanza's balance sheet in 1959 is a vivid example. Costing $95,000 to make, it could quickly cover its costs in America. In Australia and Canada, it could then be sold for as little as $4,000, while the cheapest local dramas would cost 10 times that to make. In developing countries like Kenya and Nicaragua, Bonanza could be sold for just $25. And in the developing world, there were other problems.
Howdy, Mr. Calloway. Hello, Hank. Struck it rich, huh? The joke's on you, you sniveling skunk.
The content of our program at that time was overloaded in favor of foreign programming, and not all of the bonanzas of that period and wagon train of that period was particularly good and balanced in favor of the black people, for instance, in favor of the third world. This was the time when it was the fashion to beat down all black people. Indians will always lose, that kind of a thing. And the audience did not see the distinction between a historical drama and the present. What they saw on television, they held to be almost the truth. And that was unfortunate.
I struck at once. We took a strong force, but unarmed, since that is the rule.
As television flourished in the mid-50s, the essential forms of popular drama began to take shape. In many countries, the police series quickly became a staple. In Britain, where broadcasting authorities feared transatlantic cultural bombardment, tight quota restrictions limited the flood of American imports.
Oh, Mr. Dixon.
In the sheltered British climate, the homegrown PC Dixon became the favorite TV bobby. In the mid-50s, before the coming of the angry young men and of Z-Cars with its tougher vision of police life, Dixon was hailed as a breakthrough in documentary drama.
Can I see your moneylender's license, please?
License?
That's right. You've either got to have a license or a certificate from the justices authorizing the grant of such a license. Otherwise, you are committing an offense. Now, come on, Blake.
Oh, that's ridiculous. Preposterous. I'm not coming.
You resisting arrest? You mean you want me to force you?
No, of course not.
Oh, pity.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. I won't do it again.
That's all right, Mrs. Evans. But if there is another time, watch what you sign. And if you're not sure, just pop it to the station and we'll always help you. Come on, you. So it was all sorted out in the end, and no bones broken, luckily.
In America in 1960, the big new hit was the action telefilm, and the biggest hit of all was The Untouchables, the most violent drama series on television to that date. The action telefilm became the key weapon in the ratings shootout between the big three American networks. Script supervisors were hired especially to inject more action. Film libraries were raided for old footage of shootouts and riots. In 1 week of November 1960, a TV monitoring group registered 144 murders, 143 attempted murders, 52 justifiable killings, 2 massacres, 13 kidnappings, and uncountable brutal fights. The ratings soared.
There are cottage industries in Hollywood that can give you any kind of violence anytime. You can just put in a few minutes and you can hype a lagging program, a bad program with a bit of violence.
In 1961, President Kennedy appointed Newton Minow as chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, the government's controlling body for broadcasters. He left television chiefs in no doubt about his views.
I can assure you that what you will observe is a vast wasteland. You will see a procession of blood and thunder, mayhem, violence, sadism, murder, Western bad men, Western good men, private eyes, gangsters, more violence, and most of all, boredom.
Dr. Kildare, have you seen Judd Morrison?
The networks rushed to tidy up their act, producing a crop of clean-cut, decent serials like Dr. Kildare.
Oh, Zoe, about tonight.
You can't make it.
They realize the sanctity of human life as passionately and deeply as any philosopher. So you feel involved with them?
Is he going to die, Dr. Kildare?
We're doing everything we can for him, Harriet.
But for the most part, the Hollywood machine continued to stamp out the familiar batch of action films on its now highly developed machinery.
Once they were beginning to get into that assembly line mode, let's crank it out, boys. 39 of them this year, or whatever, 26 or whatever. It's product, and it gets to be like a River Rouge Ford plant after a while. Don't worry about it, it's just television. What are you worried about? There are 39 of them. Don't worry about it, Cliff. Just say the words. Don't open the furniture.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly going to more than 100 countries as that American assembly line reached its peak production in the 60s. It spilled out popular drama for the world.
Bones, no!
Where is he? He has passed into what was. All that you knew is gone.
Earth's not there. At least not the Earth we know. We're totally alone.
We were in some deserted village in the wilds of the Caspian Sea, and this waiter came up. And, of course, didn't speak any English. I mean, the man was as remote from civilization as you can get in the world. And Captain Kirk, you know, it was bizarre. And then in the back room, on this ancient black and white television set, while I was eating, Star Trek was playing.
Spock!
But if Star Trek could affect that in that remote part of civilization, what must Dallas and other shows that don't paint a pretty picture of America do to influence people of the world as to what America is like?
I think television is a mirror of the society, rather than a window on it, a kind of a mirror of it. The year that Nixon was running for president against Humphrey, he was running on a law and order platform, and 9 of the 10 top rated shows were law and order shows. That is, they were police shows or westerns or someplace with the goodie and the baddie, and the lawman prevailed. So that told you something about the mood of the country and suggested to me that there was a kind of a public opinion poll in what becomes popular on television.
Today, as the story machine propels those American moods and obsessions to the ends of the television universe, viewers around the world have become citizens of a strange new empire of shared images and ideas. The curious, distorted universe offered by that story machine has been vividly summarized by an American observer.
Crime never pays. Husbands and wives don't engage in sex, they raise children. Pretty children are popular. Ugly children, cynical. Mothers never work. Single women always do. Heroes are handsome. Anything funny happens indoors. Nobody really dies, nobody is really born. Sex, therefore, is unnecessary, therefore doesn't exist. Politics doesn't exist. God isn't funny, all jokes are, though. Automobiles screech when they come to a stop. Action is a fast-moving car. Italians lust after women. Old people are little children. Little children are adults. Detectives are rich, have lots of hair, and drive convertibles. All detectives live in Southern California. The government of the United States is involved in nothing and interferes with nobody. All problems are solved in slightly less than half an hour.
But despite the triumphal missionary drive of the American story machine around the planet, there's evidence of rebellion. Japan, which used to import huge quantities of American telefilm, now makes almost all its own popular drama. Here, as everywhere else, it seems viewers much prefer their own stories if their television can afford to make them. Today, samurai dramas like Underground Executioner reflect traditions that owe nothing to Hollywood. A huge popular success for the past 10 years, Underground Executioner takes contemporary stories, often discovered in newspapers, and turns them into a historical drama derived from traditional theater. In the Kyoto studios, the samurai production line churns out the ever more ingenious executions with bullet train efficiency. The hero is an incompetent junior policeman who's derided by everyone. But secretly, he fights a one-man vigilante campaign to eradicate evil men via ritualized killings, more than 1,500 so far. It seems the formula helps the Japanese viewer to cope with the stresses of work.
He obeys his boss. He works as he's told to by those above him. But there's a sense of frustration. And the viewer does put his department chief or whatever in the place of the villain and gets rid of his frustrations that way.
In this episode, based on recent news reports of phony and exploiting fortune tellers in Japan, the hero pursues an evil astrologer.
Well, what we do, we watch the soap operas in our office, and we provide daily updates for you on the telephone. You can call anywhere in the United States and find out what happened on your favorite soap. Well, we have all 13 daytime soap operas, and we offer around a 60-second review on each soap opera. You never have to miss it again, and our service is so good for people that just want to be free from the television set.
From a shopping precinct in suburban Los Angeles, Soaps by Phone offers a 24-hour service for the 20 million soap opera addicts across America who may have missed their daily fix. It's the latest twitch in the story of television's most forgettable but durable institution, the soap opera. From Japan to Brazil, in Africa and Asia, millions of viewers share an often guilty addiction to the interminable tales of heartache and entanglement, which are the stuff of the soaps. Today, their modern fairy tales are a part of countless daily lives, a timeless and reassuring fusion of fantasy and familiarity.
I think the basic message of soap is everything you've always believed about life but have been ashamed to admit. And the message of good triumphing over evil and virtue being triumphant and rewarded indeed.
And if you or Maggie try to cut me out, you're not going to be happy about what happens. My phone number.
For the team of college graduates who write the summaries for soaps by phone, the daily challenge is to distill the message of the soaps into tiny melodramas.
Tomorrow.
And on Fridays, Young and the Restless on CBS, Paul and Andy are hired by Kevin to investigate the mystery surrounding Rick's first wife. Digging through old newspapers, part of the mystery is unraveled when it appears that Rick's wife, Melissa, drowned in a scuba accident off the coast of Maui. However, the plot thickens.
On all the soaps, they've talked about things anywhere from political kinds of issues to parapsychological to Big Brother.
Back in Genoa City, Rick and Nikki bask in the afterglow of a passionate night of lovemaking.
Now in All My Children, they're doing lesbianism, and they're doing it very tastefully.
David gives Jeff a blood test, hoping desperately that his son-in-law will not be a victim of drug abuse.
Well, actually, it started one afternoon stuck on the California freeway system at 2:15 in the afternoon, and I'm frustrated because I'm not going to get home in time to see my favorite soap opera. And so I think in my mind, if there was only a place to call tonight, then I wouldn't have to be frustrated. I could call them, find out what happened, and I wouldn't have that feeling of having missed a day.
The eternal soapy serial was devised in the 1930s, given its nickname and sponsored by an American soap company anxious to fill hours of radio around its adverts as cheaply as possible, while grabbing a big audience for the product. For TV companies today, cheap soap is still a cornerstone of their output, and the rules set by those first soaps 50 years ago have never really changed. Japan's most popular soap in the mid-80s is Oshin, a tear-jerking saga of a woman's fortitude in the face of non-stop catastrophe, from childhood slavery to earthquake and bereavement. Oshin has found a distinguished fan from overseas.
But endurance, tenacity, and sheer hard work, qualities which I understand are beautifully portrayed in your popular TV drama, Ocean, have brought your nation great economic success.
Oshin celebrates the essential old-fashioned moralities of soap.
The moral values of the soap are about a generation behind the trendsetters of our own time. I think in every nation where where soaps are made, which is almost everywhere, the same time gap obtains, and this is part of the reassurance.
In 1954, the BBC dipped a tentative toe into the suds with the Grove family, a quaint mixture of government information handouts and class stereotypes. In one early episode, an inspector calls to talk to Mr. Grove and his son about security.
Well, my grandma keeps a tidy sum parked under her bed.
Oh, does she? Well, why doesn't she deposit it with a bank? Or sit a simple wall safe, like this.
Trouble is, she's a very obstinate old party.
Well, there you are, you see. Money under the bed, that's a very substantial inducement. You know, a lot of householders don't make their windows safe because they think it's going to cost money. But it needn't. All they want for the sash window type is a screwdriver and a couple of long screws. Or to go to their ironmonger and get a dual screw.
But for all its hilarious stiffness, the Grove family did contain one identifiable ancestor of Ina Sharples and J.R., Grandma Grove.
Screw them together.
Now remember, if anybody talks, I shall have something to say.
We were told quite definitely it was only going to run for 13 weeks, and that was all I wanted to do because I was in London and things were taking off. So I thought 13 weeks is all it will run for. It's all anybody thought it would run for.
24 years later, this is one of the world's most famous places, and Coronation Street is the longest-running popular drama serial on Earth. And William Roach, Ken Barlow to millions of viewers, is now the only actor still appearing who was in that first episode on November the 9th, 1960.
You do look happy.
Can I try cigarettes?
Bess?
Please.
Evening.
Half a mile.
And how's our local genius, then?
All right.
I've not seen your name in paper recently. Haven't you been winning any more scholarships? It's all right for some.
What are you up to these days?
Damn all.
It was written up in the Sunday Times, The Statesman, treated very seriously as a social documentary, a great new thing. It was a very different show then.
I'll have 20 pegs too.
That'll be 4 and 7 altogether.
That's not mal. I'll give you about 6 another time.
I'm afraid you won't.
But it was very heavy, very serious and very deep, and much slower in tempo. It has imperceptibly over the years changed. There was never a moment when somebody came in and changed. It has become funnier, quicker, I would say shallower, which is a shame. But I think this reflects life. There's great threats in the world, and people do want to be entertained a bit more.
Shooting for a new episode of Coronation Street, the street's homegrown Olympics, throwing the welly and the tug-of-war. Even in the escapist 1980s, the themes and values of that first episode still survive.
Old-fashioned nostalgia plus true values, which actually I believe are still there. I think we represent a good set of values. The community spirit is alive in the street. People care what the neighbours think. It's that old thing which sets a very good set of values, and I think people like to feel these are alive. It gives them a feeling of comfort and security.
From the first episode, actress Violet Carson and Ina Sharples became inseparably identified.
I'm Mrs. Sharples. I'm very pleased to meet you. I'm a neighbour.
The identification with their character is a familiar problem for the stars of popular TV drama.
Just don't think that when you walk out of that door that you're ever coming back.
I won't.
For Bill Roach, the overlap between reality and illusion has sometimes been more disturbing. When his screen wife, Deirdre, threatened to leave him, the nation held its breath.
Ken, I don't want to go. Don't make me go.
I got letters from people while it was going on before Ken knew about it, saying, I think I ought to tell you that your wife is going off. You know, I really think you ought to do something about it. There are some people who wish, probably people who don't have much family, are very elderly, are very lonely, would like to think we are real.
In its 24th year, the people who make the street still think they have a phenomenon that stands outside the normal workings of the television story machine.
We are a drama. We like to call ourselves a folk opera, and I don't like to think that we are a soap opera.
A funeral in Rio. It's an occasion for national mourning in Brazil, and a very special moment for television. The crowds and the cameras have gathered for the death of Jeanette Claire, Brazil's most famous writer of soap operas, known here and throughout Latin America as telenovelas. The funeral of Jeanette Claire was watched by millions on television in a bizarre spectacular that echoed the emotional scenes of the novellas themselves. Everywhere in South America, the telenovela is the essential television form. Today in Brazil, with 4 novellas a night, 6 nights a week, soap opera rules. Packaged behind the most elaborate and expensive title sequences in world television and delivered in stories running for about 6 months each, the novellas are the center of a huge business. National merchandising campaigns are built around escapist stories of beautiful people squabbling amongst their sports cars, yachts, and nightclubs. On Rio's Ipanema beach, the economic miracle promised by Brazil's politicians and the good life celebrated by the novellas look comfortably within reach. But only minutes away, in the slum favelas on the hillsides overlooking Ipanema, there's a very different reality. Jose de Oliveira and his family gather in the wood and brick box, which is their home, to watch the early evening novella.
Nossa, gente, eu não falo assim, não. Sou seu guri.
A few miles away, in a middle-class Rio suburb, the Costa family watched the 8 o'clock novella over dinner. In a wealthy apartment within sight of the slum family in their wooden shack, Jose Soares has come home from his art gallery especially to watch the 7 o'clock novella. The television fairy tales that obsess every level of Brazilian society are manufactured under the shadow of Corcovado Mountain in the studios of Globo TV. Globo's new 8 o'clock novella, Champagne, is being rehearsed in its huge and expensive wine bar set. Champagne is a striking example of the novela's escapist menu, a limited recipe drawn from the emotional and political diet of Brazil. Begun here in 1964, after the right-wing revolution of Brazil's generals, the novellas were tightly censored to promote the ideals of the economic miracle and to soothe discontent. But with their stories of sudden wealth and happiness, the novellas also appeal to older Brazilian needs.
The people in Brazil believe in miracles. Everybody really believes in miracles here in Brazil.
Daniel Filho, who's made more than 800 novellas, knows the formula.
Well, first of all, it must be a couple of lovers. So the boy meet girls, okay, and they're going to be losing a meeting until the end of the novella, when they meet forever. One of them, it must be a raising class. Who is raising, who is going up, because this keep the American dreams, the capitalism dream. So everybody feels in that way, because they see, if that happened with them, can happen with me. So I can be a rich guy. So that the people call the opium of the public.
Slums where tens of millions of Brazilians struggle to survive. The viewers seem to have few illusions about the dream world of the novellas.
Aquilo é fantasia.
It's a fantasy. The word novella means novel. It's not reality. Reality is something else.
The problem is that you cannot succeed in television if you stay only talking about bad things. You see, the television is also entertainment, but 6 months, every day, talking about, I'm dying, the people say, come on, die fast and let's see another thing.
Il Prometo, The Promise, is a new Globo novella with an interesting background. Starring Brazil's most famous actor, Francisco Cuoco, it's about a successful banker who's going into politics. During a campaigning trip to a prison, he's been shot. In his hospital bed, he juggles visits from his wife, his political advisor, and a horde of journalists, including his photographer mistress. But he still summons the energy for a heroic declaration about the plight of prisoners.
Melhorar as condições de vida existentes dentro dos presídios. Eu pretendo usar aqui fora todo o meu poder, todo o meu prestígio, no sentido de atender essas reivindicações. Eu prometo. Eu prometo. Eu prometo.
The intriguing real-life subplot, not passed on to the viewers, is that this novella is largely funded by a bank, anxious to improve the image of banking and bankers. It's a vivid example of a major feature of Brazil's novella industry, merchandising.
We went to the Association of the Bankers in Brazil. We know that they were trying to make the image of the banker better. And we said, look, would you like to make your merchandise here using our actor? You have to give us a big help saying exactly what is the life of a banker. He's not the guy who is getting your money. He's a human, he suffers, he laughs. It is what merchandising does.
What merchandising also does in Brazil's novellas is to sell things via storylines carefully adapted to include plugs for products and services. Georges Adib is particularly proud of two recent examples.
We are selling the concept of plastic. It's very important for the manufacturer. The important is to maintain the plastic up to date. Rich people in our novellas using the products because they are giving the example for all the people to use.
In another, more disturbing example of merchandising, one of Brazil's leading novella characters goes to his doctor for his sclerosis. The doctor advises good food, exercise, and a drug.
The name of this product never is mentioned, only the S of the Sandoz laboratory.
At the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, an exhibition celebrating the years of MASH has drawn more than 1 million visitors. It seems that despite the highly perishable nature of popular drama, something remains that can touch the lives of its huge audience.
I have an announcement. One more stupidity and every nurse goes on report.
And I'd like to make an announcement. Major Houlihan and I are getting married, right, Sugar?
What?
That's outrageous.
We are not.
Then go ahead and have the baby alone.
I wasn't a star. I wasn't important. I was a good character actor, but there were 15 guys in New York who could do it better than me. And if you made trouble,
A generation ago, the Defenders broke new ground in establishing the idea that popular drama could say something as well as entertain.
Not every story in life ends satisfactorily. Neither does the law. Sometimes everything ends up in the air. No rescue, no climax, not even a good rousing disaster.
Hey, what you gonna do? What I got is this gun. Detective Henry Goldblum, Hill Street Station.
Today, Hill Street Blues is a continuing reminder that popular drama can still upset the rules of the story machine to tell stories that are more than just throwaway entertainment.
Appealing to a broad audience and maintaining quality need not be mutually exclusive ambitions. If you tell good stories which identify drama in the rhythms and processes of people's lives as they're lived, that an audience will respond.
I love animals, Lieutenant. They're loyal, they're reliable. I think they're much more giving of affection than humankind. It's cute, isn't he? Hey, oh, you like smoked fish head, you little guy.
Daddy, it's your protein grow very, very big, very, very good for you.
His name's Mickey. I just love this little guy.
Hey, Mick, great collar today.
Things don't always work out the way we want them to.
Goodbye, Cheyenne.
The most important thing is we're in the business to entertain. The day we don't entertain them anymore, they'll stop watching.
Bye, Cheyenne. Bye, Cheyenne.
Next week, television plays and play power.
Peter Gallagher and Ray Sharkey star in our premiere movie next on 9, The Idolmaker. Then join us for all the action of the day from the Adelaide Oval in the first Test cricket.